For over a decade now, it's been piercing the Dubai skyline, a shimmering needle of glass and steel that just seems to defy gravity. The Burj Khalifa is more than just a building, it's a global icon. But it also holds a fascinating mystery, one that we're going to unravel right now.
So just to get a sense of the scale here, we're talking about 829 meters. That's over half a mile straight up. If you were to jump from the top, it would take you a full 20 seconds just to reach the ground. It is hands down the tallest structure humanity has ever built.
And that's where we get to the real question here. In an age where we're constantly innovating and pushing boundaries, why has this record stood for so long? What's the deal? What makes the Burj Khalifa so tough to beat?
Okay, so to really get why this record has held on for so long, we've got to look at the moment it was set. This wasn't just another broken record. This was a statement.
Okay, so you see this chart, right? The last record holder was Taipei 101, an absolute beast of a building at 510 meters. But look what the Burj Khalifa did. It didn't just squeak by, it absolutely demolished that record, towering over it by a massive 62%.
And to put that into perspective for you, most records were broken by, 5, maybe 10%. 19% was considered huge. So this wasn't just another step in the race to the sky. No way. This was a deliberate, audacious move meant to shut down the competition for a long, long time.
This whole race to the sky thing, it's not new. It's basically part of our DNA. The Burj Khalifa, it's just the latest and maybe the wildest chapter in a story that's thousands of years old.
Think about it. For almost 4,000 years, the Great Pyramid of Giza was the champ. Then you had the cathedrals take over. But the real game changer was the skyscraper in the late 1800s. After that, the race just exploded through the 20th century, bouncing from Chicago to New York, then over to Kuala Lumpur, with each new building pushing the limits just a little bit more. Until, bam, Dubai comes along in 2009 and just rewrites the entire rulebook.
So what was Dubai's secret, right? How did a city that's basically in the desert pull off something this massive? Well, it turns out it's a pretty powerful mix of sheer ambition and some seriously clever engineering.
It all comes down to this massive national ambition. See, back in the late 90s, Dubai's leaders knew they couldn't rely on oil forever. They had to pivot. So the Burj Khalifa wasn't just some vanity project. It was a cold, calculated strategy to launch Dubai onto the world stage, to make it a global hub for tourism and investment, and the tower was going to be the spectacular, can't-miss centerpiece.
And wow, did that gamble pay off. That $1.5 billion price tag, it wasn't just recovered. The economic boom it sparked in the surrounding area just dwarfed that initial cost. It turned the whole thing into a massive financial win.
But okay, money and ambition, that's one thing. You still have to actually, build the thing. So what was the engineering secret sauce? What was the breakthrough that made a building this tall even possible?
All right, this is the key right here. The buttressed core. It's this brilliant Y-shaped design. Think of it like a giant tripod. Each of those three wings supports that central core, making the whole structure incredibly stable against wind and twisting forces, which, by the way, are the #1 enemies of any super tall building.
And here's the kicker. This was brand new tech at the time. The Burj Khalifa was only the second building on the planet to ever use this system. They basically took a cutting-edge idea and scaled it up to a level that nobody thought was even possible.
So you'd think with a design this revolutionary, we'd see a whole new wave of even taller skyscrapers, right? Well, not so fast. The reality is, trying to build higher than the Burj Khalifa means you slam right into some pretty serious walls. And it's not for a lack of trying. Look at these contenders. The Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia was supposed to smash the 1-kilometer barrier. The Dubai Creek Tower was aiming even higher. But today, both of these incredible projects are just stalled. They're basically giant, unfinished monuments to how hard this really is.
And it's not just them. This is happening all over the world. You've had these super ambitious projects in China, Kuwait, you name it, all designed to go past 800 meters. And they get proposed, and then they just fizzle out. They get quietly canceled. So what is going on? What's stopping us?
Well, you can really break it down into what I'm calling the three walls. First, you've got the engineering wall. That's where physics just says nope. The weight and wind forces start pushing materials like steel and concrete to their absolute limits.
Then there's the human wall. At these crazy high altitudes, our bodies just aren't meant to be there. You need complex, super expensive life support systems. And finally, the biggest one of all, the money wall. The cost is just astronomical, the financial risk is huge, and honestly, there's just not much practical need for buildings this tall, so investors get very, very nervous.
This quote from the Chinese government really says it all. When they banned new buildings over 500 meters, they basically said these things are simply for vanity and a wastage of money. That's a powerful statement.
Okay, so we've looked at the history, the engineering, the challenges. Now we can finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together and answer that big question. Why, after all this time, is the Burj Khalifa still the king?
It really comes down to a perfect storm of factors. You had this immense national will. You had massive amounts of government money from oil, a super clear economic goal that actually paid off, a totally revolutionary engineering design, and it all happened at this unique moment in time before global priorities really started to shift. Trying to line all those things up again? It's proven to be pretty much impossible.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The guy who actually engineered the Burj Khalifa, Bill Baker, he says that technically we can build much, much taller. He's on record saying a building over 3 kilometers high, even taller than Mount Everest, is theoretically possible.
And that just changes everything, doesn't it? It completely reframes the whole mystery. It tells us that the real roadblock isn't engineering anymore. So the real question we have to ask isn't can we build taller, it's why would we? What's the point?
And that, right there, is the enduring mystery of the Burj Khalifa. It's not really a story about the limits of our technology. It's a story about the limits of our practical ambition. It seems, for now at least, our desire to touch the sky is being held down by the very real economics and needs we have right here